Good afternoon. We'd like to call the Wight County Board of Supervisors joint board meeting with the school board to order. And we would like to have a solid roll call.
Mr. Ely?
Here.
Mr. Gardner?
Here.
Mr. Avery?
Here.
Mr. Roundtree? Here.
Yes.
I'm calling the Wight County School Board joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors to order. Today is Thursday, March 26, 2026. We're located at 9307 Old Stage Highway in Smithfield, Virginia, preparing students for college, career, and life. Madam Clerk, please take the roll call.
Mr. Wooster?
Here.
Mrs. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Marsh?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Here.
And Mr. Colick?
Here.
Okay, we'll take this time to do a moment of silence.
And the Vice Chair will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for closed session as presented.
Clerk?
Wrong.
It's not 4.1?
Not yet. Board of Supervisors first.
So moved.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree? Yes. Chairman Jefferson?
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda for closed session as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins? Yes. Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
And Mr. Colick?
Yes. No, we still do the amendments for open session now. Closed session.
Mr. Ford?
Yeah.
We have to go through for open. No, for close. We got open.
Yep, I move to approve the agenda for open session as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins? Yes. Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
And Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Okay. Get a motion for closed session.
So moved. Excuse me.
So, what's the purpose of our closed session? Because usually our county attorney states the reason for the closed session.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to do that at the end.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think you just
Wanna do
needed
that at the
a
end?
motion to adopt the agenda at this
Okay.
point.
Well, we adopted the agenda, I thought.
Okay, we did.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's my fault. So welcome, isn't it?
All right, this time we'd like to welcome everyone that's present here today and welcome those that's viewing this meeting and ask that you partake and just make sure that you communicate with the members of both these boards if they have any concerns about anything that we discussed today.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to welcome everyone, particularly the Board of Supervisors, the County Administrator, and staff. The school board and the school administration have been working very hard for the past several months on this budget. And I can honestly say that we have looked at pretty much every line. And for the first time since I've been on the board, we have not been able to toss anything out. Everything in this budget is really vital to the school division. I know there's a few people who have said that, well, our enrollment has not gone up, but we need more instructors. The reason for that, we're going to find, is sped. Now, we've got staff members who are going to explain this in detail, but we have an increase in our sped population, our special education population, and that is the reason, the biggest reason we're asking for more instructors this year. Additionally, we're asking for pay raises. We have had, last couple of years, a lot of teachers leave to go to other school divisions where they get paid a lot more. And I'm not talking just $1,000, $2,000 a year more. I'm talking a lot more. We need to retain these teachers. We can't afford to be losing any anymore. So with that, I'd like to, again, welcome everyone to the meeting and thank you for coming and listening to us, and I hope we can have some good dialogue. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we're ready to get into the presentation. We have a presentation by Dr. Kramer, our Wight County School Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair of the Board of Supervisors Jefferson, School Board Chair, Mr. Colick, Vice Chair, School Board, Mr. Ford, and Vice Chair, Board of Supervisors, Roundtree, and to members of the respective boards. So, Mr. Colick, you set us up very nicely, sir. You almost did the presentation for me, so thank you for that introduction. Very much appreciative of this opportunity to present to both boards what we deem to be the needs of the division. So Mr. Goodwright is pulling up my presentation there. So as he's doing that, the presentation is going to be just an overview. I would like to spend the majority of our time having a conversation, allowing the respective board members to have a conversation with one another and to certainly ask questions of staff and of me. And before we do that, however, little housekeeping here, would like to make a clarification. So under Section 7 business, the only formal presentations that I think we'll have are going to be mine and Administrator Mr. Robertson. Our staff will be prepared to walk us through the other agenda items. They will lead that discussion, but there will not be a formal presentation. Additionally, before we discuss the budget, I think it's important that we note the progress we've made in past years as it pertains to some of the other areas, more specifically capital. So if I can, who is advancing the slides? You are, sir? Maybe? All right, there we go. All right, stop there for a second. So the capital projects from 2023 through 2025, I think have been quite extensive. We've made significant progress, and I would like to take a moment to extend a debt of gratitude to both boards, to the school board for approving those projects, and to the Board of Supervisors for finding the resources to fund those projects. So let's jump right in, and I would like to illustrate it with a few examples. As you look here, you see the tracks, and I'll start top left, tracks at both Smithfield and Windsor and Fields. Our tracks weren't usable, and we do have before and after photos that we can share with you, but they are very much functional now, and I think beautiful tracks and fields with the support of, again, both boards. Our tennis courts were not functional. They are now. We have enhanced our safety and security. We now have weapons detections at all of our secondary schools, middle and high. Our bus fleet, I think Dr. Coleman can correct me, I think a third of our buses were obsolete. They should not have actually been on the road according to the Virginia Department of Education. They exceeded 300,000 miles or 15 years. But because of the two boards, we have received, I think, 5 buses this year, 5 last year, and a few the year prior. So thank you for that. Vestibules. I think my first year, those were approved prior to my arrival. But vestibules in all of our schools, with the exception of Windsor High. So Windsor, once you hear this, we have not forgotten you, but because of the design of their lobby, it's going to require more than the other schools. Again, the fields and the tracks there at Windsor as well. And then a huge investment in our schools at the tune of $7 million for the replacement for the HVAC unit at Carrollton Elementary School. So I want to, again, extend a huge thank you to you all, and I would like to give you a round of applause. Thank you all for what you've done for our schools. And I assure you, it is making a difference. And if you speak to the students and the staff members in these schools, they will tell you what a difference that is making. And the next slide gives us an exhaustive list of the capital projects. And there are actually more than the photos illustrated, the amount of those projects and the year that those projects were actually completed. And if you look at the very bottom, that's an extensive price tag, $14.5 million invested in our schools and our students. So again, thank you all tremendously for that. Then moving on, as we go through the presentation here, did have a point. I'm not sure how well it's going to work. It doesn't work very well. So I'll try to direct your attention to a few areas here. And then we have a few other slides which will extract this information out and provide it a little more clearly. But in the upper left, top left, you see that $2.5 million number there. That is the additional revenue we expect to get from the state for fiscal 27. We certainly hope for more, but that is what we have been informed of at this time. Moving under that, you see description, changes, and expenses. There are four major areas where we are asking for additional funding. The vast majority of that funding will be for pay increases at $5.1 million. We have projected the employee health insurance to be slightly over $1 million. And then new positions primarily for special education, and that's at $1.5 million. And then the next largest expense there is purchase services at a bit over $1 million as well. Once you factor in the additional $2.5 million from the state, that bottom number is $7.1 million of all of our needs, and I think Mr. Collick did a really nice job of articulating some of those needs. And then if you look over at required, so if we do not receive all of the funding for our requested needs, the required is $4.5 million in that middle column. And moving on to the next slide, again, same information, just a little more clearly presented. Pay increases, employee health insurance, new positions for special education, and purchase services. Next, changes in revenue, the additional resources expected from the state at this time, $2.5 million. And then the increase from the county, again, the total request would be 7.1. The absolute required essentials, including the pay increase at $4.5 million. And then moving on, these are, again, the four broad areas I will touch on, and staff will be prepared to walk us through. So the pay raises and the employee health insurance. I will spend a little time unpacking that. I won't spend much time on the employee health insurance. I will look to our resident experts, Mrs. Sullivan, and certainly our CFO, Ms. DeVary, who have much more experience in this area than I and have had more conversations with our consultants regarding this. So we'll touch on that just a little bit. Not too extensively, because we will be bringing information to our board next Thursday at our at our April board meeting. So let's dig into the compensation study, which sort of gives us the very quantitative information we need to discuss where we are relative to neighboring districts. So we see labor market competitors. And I actually have a copy here. So this was presented at our February board meeting. I think it's in board docs if you'd like a copy of this. It is available. The slides I will be sharing, the next few slides, are taking directly verbatim from the report from Management Advisory Group International, who presented to our board again back in February. So you see the labor market competitors. These are the districts in our region. There are 14 districts in Region 2, which is where we're listed in the state. For those watching and for those here, you might wonder where is Surrey. Surrey is actually not in Region 2, so they're not included here. But all of our other neighboring jurisdictions are Suffolk, Southampton, Newport News, Franklin City. As far north as Williamsburg, James City, and York, and Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, and others. So here are the results. If you would take us to the next slide. So this might be a little bit hard to see. For those of you here, you are able to actually look at the actual paper copy. And what you see there are the districts in red. So the 13 other districts we are compared to, 10 of those 13 pay more than we do. Some fairly significantly more than we do. I think Suffolk and Portsmouth start their teachers off at $60,000, and we are at $52,520. Now, we've only used a teacher comparison here. It's our largest employee group, but I would venture to inform you that all of our employee groups are below the market in the region. So certainly our teachers are the largest group, but it's important that I note that all of our employee groups are paid less than our neighboring jurisdictions. So the recommendation from the consulting firm is that we pay our teachers at the 70th percentile. That would make us more competitive. And as Mr. Collick mentioned, we already see that we're losing teachers and we're not recruiting teachers at the same pace and rate we did when actually I first arrived just a little less than 4 years ago. So again, we're paid less than 10 of the other 13 districts. The only 3 that we outpace are Franklin City, Southampton, I think Gloucester by a little. The next slide shows you if we actually paid our teachers at the 70th percentile, you see that a lot of the red then disappears, and we then will actually surpass most of the districts in Region 2, with the exception of a few who will still outpace us, even with this significant raise. Now, the caveat here is that the other districts are not waiting for us to catch up. So it's important to note that they will likely be giving raises as well. So those numbers will change. And you might ask, well, why didn't we use the 27 numbers? Well, we don't know how much their raises are going to be, but we are confident that all of the other districts in this study will likely be giving raises as well. But if we were to give the raise, I think what that would ensure, if we do not surpass all of these districts, at least we will be closer and more comparable to them. And then the next slide here, and actually I have a copy, I thought I brought it, yes. So this is taking directly from the Virginia Department of Education. We actually have copies, and Ms. Whitlow, would you please pass the copies to members of the board, and we have some extras for members of the audience as well. So this shows the 5-year cumulative pay increase, and ladies and gentlemen, we've lost ground. It's no one person in here's fault. So I would like to disabuse anyone of that notion. There's no need for any of us to point fingers. Raises were certainly given during these years, but we have lost ground. And I think this sheet shows that this is the complete exhaustive list for the entire state. But as you see, in the past 5 years, we've given a combined 19% pay increase, and everyone else has given more than we have given. I think our closest competitor there is Franklin City at 21%, and some districts have given a cumulative pay increase of 31%. So we've lost ground again. There's no one's fault, but collectively, we as a community have to figure out how do we bridge that gap so that we can retain quality employees, and not just quality teachers, all of our employees. As I look around the room, and not to pick on our CFO and our Deputy Superintendent of Operations and our HR Director and our Director of Special Education, we have quality people in our district. We have top-notch people, and I've worked in multiple districts in multiple states, and I'll tell you, I'll put our talented people up with anyone including, not to exclude you, Mr. Cooprider, as well in IT, quality people. So it's not just for our teachers. This is for all of our employee groups. And one thing I took from the presentation from the consultant, he said, let's not pit our groups against one another. All of our employees deserve to be paid fairly and appropriately and comparable to their colleagues in neighboring jurisdictions. Moving on, sir, next slide. This gives us a breakdown, again, same information, but what this shows is the breakdown. Most of the raises will actually go, the lion's share would go to our teachers, over 2/3 of that, because our teachers are certainly the largest employee group. So 3.6 million of that 5 million would go to our teachers, our clinicians, 152,000, and then our classified employees, our administrators and support staff, collectively would be the $1.3 million. Moving on. Now, new positions, and as Chair Collick stated, for special education, and I would like to note that universally across the region, across the country, virtually every school district since the pandemic, almost all districts have lost students. Just the way of life, and I actually have some research article recently on my desk about that universally. We have actually lost fewer than many of our neighboring jurisdictions. Some places are actually closing schools. And I am proud to say that this year we have an increase beyond what the state projected. I think at the tune of, correct me staff, more than 100 students beyond what the state projected we would have. So we are outpacing our regional neighbors and our neighbors here in the state. So Isle of Wight is actually seeing an uptick in student growth, at least in this year. So the need for special education positions, if you can take us to the next slide, you will see all of the positions here with the exception of one request for an assistant principal at Hardy, and Mrs. Sullivan can certainly speak to that when we have our conversation regarding the different agenda items, but all of the other positions here are for special education. And you see an asterisk for a few of those. The top 3, those are mandated. Those are absolutely required. And again, our Director of Special Education, Ms. Magna, will be able to speak to those. I am very pleased to say at the very bottom in red, we were able to find some positions that we could cut to the tune of almost $228,000, and that will certainly help that bottom line as well. Moving on, purchase services, and next slide. We see our major costs there are for security, substitute services at $375,000, and then other contracted services at $275,000. Again, to our CFO's credit, she identified some savings there at the bottom line, so she was able to find some cuts as well at the tune of $123,000. And again, we will be able to elaborate if you have questions pertaining to purchase services and other operational expenses that are outlined in the one-pager that I referenced earlier. Moving on, sir. So future capital projects. As I stated, we have made enormous progress, and I am very appreciative. So I am being effusive in my thanks and praise to each of you for those investments. But we still have needs. And if you take us to the next slide, some of the most pressing needs, our fleet services building. That building was built, and correct me, Dr. Coleman, in the 1950s, I think? Yes, sir. And virtually no improvements have occurred to that building in 70 years. We deserve, our people who work in that building deserve to have much better facilities than we currently have. So I would impress upon both boards that that should be a priority. Again, our buses, we have started, we've begun purchasing buses over the past few years, and that is making a significant difference. A few years ago, we could actually barely get through the school day without repairing buses, making double runs because we didn't have enough functional buses. And again, thanks to you all, that problem is being addressed, but that need continues as we have an aging bus fleet, and some of the buses that are functional now won't be next year, so we need to continue to make those investments purchasing additional buses each year, and we think an additional 5 for the foreseeable future will be enough to do that. Two other areas I'd like to mention are the HVAC upgrades and replacements at Windsor High School and Carsville Elementary. The benefit is that we don't need, we think, a complete renovation and overhaul, but we will certainly need some upgrades, and the cost there for Carsville is $330,000, and for Windsor, we're projecting that to be $400,000. And you all know, as well as I do, the longer you wait, the more costly these projects will become. And then moving on, as I conclude, we shared this slide because we have made an effort to defray the cost that we extend to the taxpayers in this community. So we have sought numerous competitive grants. And as you see there, I'm very proud to say, as you all well know, the latest was the largest, a $14 million competitive school construction assistance program grant through the state of Virginia. And that grant is the third largest, if I'm not wrong, the third largest award in the entire state of Virginia. I'm very proud of that amount. But then you see others there. Specifically, the i-sle Maritime Trades Academy Lab School state grant for $2.7 million over the next 5 years. And then we have a partnership with the shipyard as well. And then numerous other grants there. And so we've received well over $20 million in competitive grants over the past few years. And that number is actually a little bit lower because I know we just received another $55,000 from the Wallace Foundation, and there are some others that we didn't put there, but very proud of the work that we're doing to not just, again, rely on the federal government, the state, and even our local government. We are trying to bring in additional revenue. So as I conclude, I want to thank you all again, and we are fully prepared to answer questions pertaining to our request as the meeting proceeds. And I think I will leave this area, and I think you are up next, sir.
Good evening to our respective board chair, vice chair, and members. It's good to see you all this evening, and just to provide a little bit of context with regard to the county's overall budget. Before I jump in, I do want to say that I want to thank Dr. Kramer and his staff. We meet monthly, and that has been, that's not just a great experience for us to get together, but it has been a great learning experience for me and an opportunity for us to share information and ideas. So I'm thankful for that and really appreciate that. This has been, and is still in progress, this has been a challenging budget year for us. But I do want to give a little bit of history. Eric, I don't know if you, oh, perfect. If you look at this graph shows kind of the way the budget has been trending over the last several years. So the first year is FY 2019. The last year in the graph reflects the request that you all will be considering. And I wanted to do this just literally for context because sometimes visually it helps. But if you'll notice the first few years, so from FY19 up until about FY23, the budget remained relatively flat. Now, I don't know that I need to remind everybody, but I will, that a good portion of that time was what we call the COVID years. And so the needs were a little bit different than they are in a typical year. But since 2023, or FY23, you can see that the county's contributions toward education have been on a pretty steady increase. And so, as Dr. Kramer alluded to earlier, I think both boards can take credit for the investment in education in Isle of Wight and the impact that's making on not just our young people, but our community at large. If we can go to the next slide, because again, I want to give a little bit more context to those numbers in relationship to the overall county budget. So if you'll note, from from FY19 to FY23, and I only looked at essentially the general property and other local taxes. So we didn't take into consideration federal revenues or grants or any of that. These are primarily the tax dollars that come from Isle of Wight County citizens. And so when you look at that, the growth in those tax revenues from FY19 to FY23 grew by about just under 20%, 19.96%, or $12.5 million. The school's budget during that same time period grew by 4%, or $1.1 million. So again, this is to give you more concrete information relative to the budget being relatively flat during that period of time. From FY23 to FY26, however, the general property and other taxes grew by just over 21%. But the school's budget during that period of time, or local funding for schools, grew by 32.49%. So you can see that there has been a tremendous investment in education, and I'm not including that. What's not included in that is what's being requested. These are the actual budgeted amounts over the last few years. So when we look at FY23 to FY26, county revenues or local revenues grew by about 7%. The school's budget grew at a rate around 10 or maybe a little bit higher than 10%. So again, huge investment, excellent investment, but maybe not a sustainable investment over time, because they really need to be a little bit more in sync in terms of the way that they grow. The school's requested budget for FY27 represents in and of itself a 19.66% increase, looking at just the budgeted amount. So again, when we think about sustainability, when we think about how we keep up with that investment over time, you can see that there is a challenge. If I could go to the next slide, because I want to highlight some of the challenges that I think our board is aware of, but perhaps not the school board, and some of this may even be news to our board because we're still in the process of gathering information relative to our revenues. So for FY27, as a starting point, our machinery and tools taxes are down over $1 million. You all may be aware that Keurig Green Mountain closed. That had a significant impact on county revenues. Additionally, sales and use taxes are down about 4%. That's something that we track monthly, and for the last several months, we noticed that things were leveling off and then actually began to decline. That is roughly about a $200,000 impact on the county's budget. When you look at the flip side or the expenditure side, much like you at schools, the county is grappling with competitiveness as it relates to salaries. The critical area for us is public safety. I don't have to tell you, you can just turn on the news on any given day and you'll hear about the challenges that our neighbors to the east of us are having, but that's not unique to them. We have that same challenge. We all share, much like schools, from the same employment pool. But unlike some of our neighbors, if you were watching the news over the last couple of days, you know that Virginia Beach rolled their budget out, $2.9 billion with a B. Norfolk rolled their budget out, $2 million with a B. We're nowhere even in that universe in terms of the size of our budget. But we do share the same types of challenges, as do you. Lastly, I would point out that the capital project request that the schools have included represents over $75 million. That is a portion of what the county has to address relative to its capital program. So in addition to schools, over the next 2 years, the capital improvements program includes over $100 million in requests. Over the next 5 years, there are over $200 million in requests. And that includes over $100 million for school-related requests and another 100 and change in other requests. So again, wanted to give you some context for the overall challenge. The challenges that the schools grapple with are huge, but like I said, we share many of those challenges on our side of the ledger as well. And we'll be more than glad to answer any questions a little bit later when we get to that point in the conversation. Thank you.
We can go into discussion. We can go into discussion now.
None of these people can speak?
They're going to be available to answer questions.
Okay. All right, the floor is now open for anyone that have any questions or concerns.
I got a question since Mr. Robertson just sat down. This one in here, the FY19, FY23, you hit on the COVID period where we get all that. What wasn't captured, and I think when Dr. Kramer presented his proposal to the school board, he had some pretty good slides that went pre-COVID. I don't know how to get it up. I don't know how to get it up on the board. The point I'm trying to make is before COVID, the county was giving the schools or allocating the schools 35, even 36%. And then COVID hit and that dropped. And what Dr. Kramer and everybody else for the schools articulated very well was that during that COVID period, federal revenues were flowing in. And at that point in time, the school board was using those federal funds, and so the county was able to kind of back off on that. And then since FY19 and forward, as you said, Mr. Robertson, the investment in education from the county has been steadily increasing. But what wasn't captured was how in FY16, FY17, those pre-COVID periods of time, the county's contribution towards the school was 35, 36%. And I don't know that I can articulate it as well as these folks did, but we never really caught up from those pre-COVID periods. And I think that's a part of the reason why we got so far behind on the salaries, is because we lost that federal funding. The county never caught back up. For whatever the reason, no sense in finger pointing, but I think that's part of the conundrum we're in now. Is that it? So slide, let's see. Bear with me. Slide 17 and 18. I think picture's worth 1,000 words. And Dr. Kramer, if you or somebody could speak that a little bit better than I am. I'm running on about 4 hours of sleep, so you have to bear with me.
Actually, I think you articulated it well, sir. And these actually are the numbers that I think Mr. Webb provided us. So, no question. And as I said, to say, excuse the Latin phrase, ad nauseum, it's no one's fault. During that COVID period, we received more federal dollars. And as a result, we needed fewer dollars from the county at that time. And yes, we have not, I think, gotten back to that roughly 35% level, I think is what you're articulating, Mr. Marsh.
Yes, sir. I mean, if you slide to the next, Mr. Cooper, if you go to the next slide, it takes us up to present, and you can see that we still haven't caught up to that. And so that's That's part of the deal, right? It's all, you gotta look at the whole scope of things. And I'm not trying to point fingers, and I'm not arguing with you. Everything you said is right. But if you go back just 2 years pre-COVID, it gives you a little bit different picture.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to point out, maybe two things. One is, in those pre-COVID years, one of the things that is probably not obvious based on any of the information that we're looking at tonight, and I don't know that we need to get into the weeds, but one of the things that was included in the school's contribution was the county's contribution to debt service. So just before COVID, around COVID, we actually took that out of the contribution to schools. So that's not reflected in your budget anymore. So that's a little bit of a difference. The other is, I guess I would always caution, and Dr. Kramer and I have this conversation all the time, about looking at percentage of local budget that you might receive and feeling like you're losing ground or whatever with respect to that, because if you get locked into a percentage, you're locked in. We've got, for every percentage that you're not getting on that 100%, somebody else has got needs that come to the forefront as well. So, you know, if 35% is somehow a magical number that, and that's my term, not yours, so I don't want to put that out there on you, that we think is appropriate, I would simply be very cautious about that, because if you have a need like you have this year, where you have fairly significant increases at least being requested, I can't speak for the board members, but from a staff perspective, it'll be, you're locked in at 35% or whatever percentage there is. So I would hope that there's always flexibility with regard to not only the school board, but the board of supervisors, because your need is your need. That's not based on a percentage, that's based on what you need in any given year.
No debate, sir. And what we've asked for is a need. So I guess for the sake of saying it, if we were back at 35%, that need would be met.
So if you added the debt services to the current percentage that's being presented, what would be the percentage?
Well, I don't know. We don't.
But my point
We
is,
don't
it would
look
be
at the
different.
percentage.
It would be more.
It would be more, but yeah,
Especially with
I
the
don't
additional
know
parties'
exactly
debt
what that would be.
services, right? Sure.
Yes.
And I think during that time too, we did the CTE program, there's debt services there also.
Got CTE. We also incurred debt for the HVAC replacement at Carrollton. Yeah, I mean, that number would.
I think Mr. Marsh brings up an excellent point. We need to know what that percentage is, so we see apples to apples.
And look, I'm not pointing fingers and I'm not passing shade. The
Oh,
history
no,
is the
no.
history. Certainly was well before my time here, but just trying to get a complete picture, that's all.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that was a good question.
And Chair Jefferson and Chair Colick, we are prepared to address the following bullets in order, or we can just take questions. It's certainly up to the board and whatever your preferences
Anyone
are.
else have any questions you want to ask?
Okay, I got it. On the salary increase, most teachers will get a double-digit increase this year if you get what we're talking about. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
Also, that would put you, teachers, say in Suffolk, that's now, I understand from the school board from Suffolk, they're looking at a 5% increase in all their teachers. And I don't know what the state's gonna give them. I don't know. My point is, that double digit is not gonna be every year.
Correct.
That's a one-time deal to get teachers up to, within reason of our neighboring cities, to be able to bring teachers in, to keep teachers or whatever. So this double digit that we're looking at doing now, what will that consist of maybe the following year?
I have no way of knowing. I'm sorry.
But I mean, you're not looking at double digits again.
If I may add, I think, Mr. Ely, it's an excellent point. We don't know because we're not sure what the exact increase will be from those other divisions. But I think to your point, yes, there is, I assure you, we probably can't assure you, but I would likely say that we won't be asking for another significant raise, not at double digits. This will allow us to be caught up, if you will, to become more comparable to those other districts. And then I think it's how do we maintain that and sustain that? But yes, we right now would need to catch up. As I shared, over the last 5 years, we've given a 19% increase. Suffolk, I think, what's it, 28%. Some of the others, everyone's in the 20%. So yes, we need to catch up. But once we've done that, I think it's going to be easier to maintain. So to your point, sir, I very much doubt if we are going to come back with another compensation study next year and say, we need another 12.7%.
Mr. Ely, I think you've got an excellent point. The projection would be good, because if you just go with 10, it says double-digit percentage. You do a 10%, and the following year you just go back to a 3. What's that look like in the future? I mean, it seems like 3's been the norm in some of the localities just across on local government. So just to, because sustainability is what we're looking at too.
That's right.
Up until recently, that 3, 2, 3, maybe some, maybe 4.
Once you do the 10, then you do the 3 on top of the 10 and 3 after that. So
But I would,
projection's a good idea.
I think you're right, but I would say, I think we'd have to look at the 3. I think that's gotten us into trouble. We've been given 3 and others, if you look at the document we passed out.
But my-
Others have been given 4 and 5.
No, I guess I'm going with the state, the way that they like to come out with 3% mid-year or whatever. That's why I just grabbed that number.
Sure.
I think Mr. Ely's point, is you have that big bump to get everybody where they need to be in the 70 percentile. Where did we rate the percentile in the region prior to I know 70 is where you're projected, but on the pay study, they usually give you where you are now. Where are we on the percentile in the region with educational?
And Ms. Sullivan, I can ask you to come over to the table whenever you get a moment.
I'm just really curious, because I know typically pay studies and stuff, you make that move on a 20 percentile change. So I was just curious where we were prior to this.
Sure, I'll have to look up the exact percentile. I know that we were falling,
Roughly. I just,
I don't know that we talked about that.
it looks like the numbers speak to guessing we're in a 40 percentile.
I don't know that it's mentioned in the compensation study in terms of what percentile we were currently at, but they defined the 70th percentile in order for us to become competitive. They said in the teacher market, that is in general where you need to be in order to be competitive. They also pointed out to us multiple times that in our specific region, because of how geographically close we are to all of our neighboring divisions, that it makes it even more competitive than a lot of the other regions in the state. Teachers are willing to drive 30 to 45 minutes for $10,000. They're not willing to drive an hour. So when you're thinking about other school divisions that are more spread out geographically from their neighboring divisions, and so that was another reason why they had mentioned for us getting to that 70th percentile.
I'm just curious, because I know the pay study that I'm familiar with recently in another locality, the vendor gave us where we were in the region and then said, where do you want to go?
Right.
And they suggested that you go a certain percentage, or it didn't make sense to do it, essentially. Do you want to be in 60, 70, or do you want to do 80%? Where do you want to do this so we know what the cost is? So that baseline would be interesting to know, and I'd like to know what that is, please.
Sure, yeah.
Not tonight, I mean, just when I get you.
Yeah, and they were looking at when they were looking at the individual positions with the teacher pay, they were able to give us a specific ranking because it's very comparable from position to position in the divisions, and that's where we were 12th out of the 14 that they compared us to.
I also had a question about the pay study. The information that you gave us, the supplemental compensation, supplement collection, self-reported numbers from all over the state. And it states that we were at 19% increase over the last, call it 5 years. Is that total compensation? Does that include step increases, bonuses, all forms of compensation, or is that just purely percentage increase, cost of living at base?
percent of increase, it does not include the steps. It would not include the step increase.
And bonuses and,
Definitely not bonuses, no.
So I would like to ask a question, which school systems or districts are we actually competing against? Because some we know we can't compete against.
Do you mean in terms of like where are we losing our teachers to, where are they going?
Yes.
So Suffolk, Hampton, Newport News. I did a information gathering from all of the schools in our region. And Suffolk has yet to respond. They don't want us to know, at this point, I believe. But, I did a kind of asking them so these are licensed teachers, that are working in other school divisions, but are actually residents of Isle of Wight County. So they live here, but they choose to leave our county and go elsewhere. And excluding Suffolk, which we know is the highest paying school division, so we know there's quite a few there, there's 160. So when you think about the vacancies that we have and what those 160 could do for the students in our classrooms, we know that those people are living in Isle of Wight. And we also know that out of our employees, 65% of them are Isle of Wight residents, but 160 of them are choosing to live here but work in neighboring school divisions within our region. Some of them traveling as far as Northampton and Poquoson and Accomack.
And when we talk salaries, are we looking at salaries and benefits? How do we compare with other localities when you talk benefits?
Yeah, in the comparable packages. So we know that, for example, we looked at Suffolk's, and benefits are very difficult to compare because we've experienced in going through the RFP this year, there's a lot of variables when you're looking at benefits packages when it comes to premiums, deductibles, and the kind of the richness of the coverage that you might have. But for example, for an employee only, at our cheapest high deductible plan, employees are paying $40 a month, whereas in Suffolk, they completely pay for that employee. So not only are they making about $10,000 more, but they're also not having to pay anything for their health insurance in terms of a premium.
Okay, so how much are we paying for health benefits to our staff?
It would depend on what plan that they've selected and what level of
Overall,
coverage.
just an average. Because that's money that's being paid out, that they're getting credit for, so to speak, but they're just not receiving it in their paycheck. If they had to buy the insurance themselves, and the school not fund the insurance, that would be money that they'd be losing out of their actual paycheck. So I want to know how much money do you all pay for each teacher on the average for their health insurance?
It's very varied based on the number of dependents that they have and also the type of coverage that they select. But I would venture to say that most other school divisions have very comparable plans. I've yet to hear anyone who I've offered a job to and explained our benefits say, this is far better than what I've received somewhere else. They generally, when they come in, believe that what we're offering is pretty comparable to what their previous division had offered them. Because they do consider that. When we make offers, we have many employees, especially if they've been employed before and it's not their first job, they have a lot of questions about what is the deductible, what are their premiums going to be. Those are usually typically the biggest questions. In general, they expect the coverage to be fairly similar. But coverage from district to district tends to be pretty comparable.
Just kind of to add on to, or maybe to, part of that question there. So what percentage does the employee pay and what percentage does the school pay of any given policies? For example, and I guess it's the same, so if you have a family policy, for example, what percentage does the school system pay and what percentage does the employee pay?
So unlike the county, ours is varied. So each level of coverage in each plan that you select out of the 4 main plans that we have, the percentage might be different. Do you have that?
The current.
Take, like, for example, a family plan would be a good one to go with.
Okay.
Some of that was
So-
in your memo, right, Mr. Berry?
So the percentage varies depending on the plan, it's not the same percentage?
Correct.
Really?
ours isn't either. Ours isn't the same percentage either.
I'm not self-insured either.
Just trying.
Because I believe that the way the county currently does it is it's based off of one tier, and then depending on you, if you get more coverage, less percentage of that coverage is, or if you have less dependents, or you pick a higher, a richer plan, then less of that is covered, I believe.
Yeah, I just clarified that with the HR director today, that at the Key Advantage 250, the county contribution is 82% of the premium for employee only. And then, it cascades as you go to different coverage levels. But at the Key Advantage 500, actually, which is a higher out-of-pocket, a higher deductible, and co-insurance than the 250, our percentage that we pay of that premium is 92%. And because of that, we have almost 100% of employees. I mean, it's like 90 to 95% of our employees that take us up on the insurance. Whether it be high deductible or the Key Advantage 250 or 500 or whatever it is, it's like 90, 95%. I think we heard in our last regular meeting when we talked about health insurance. And I think, Mr. Berry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when I think you told me that school employees, maybe Ms. Sullivan, but about 55% of them actually take them up on insurance.
For example, the answer might be 80% to 90% is what the contribution from the county or the schools would be. It just varies on the.
For family coverage,
That's correct.
is we have 4 different plans. So on family coverage, it can range anywhere from the employer paying 67% to as high as 82%. Depends on what plan. And of course, the higher paying ones are the HSAs.
Right.
The health, with the high deductible with health savings accounts.
Just curious because I know of other localities and percentages roughly.
Yeah.
So.
But we issued a bid this year for our health insurance, and we'll be discussing it with the school board next week. But we did receive two bona fide offers. One is the renewal of our current plan, which, I'm pretty sure you all know, is self-insured. And then we received a quote from the local choice. So the school board will be deciding next week what to do.
So in that same vein and along those lines, with regard to whichever plan you choose to go with, I feel like I saw a memo today that stated, because, let me just step back. What's budgeted right now, correct me if I'm wrong, for health insurance is about $1 million increase over last year for cost. But I feel like what I read was when you choose the new plan, there won't be an increase in cost for health insurance.
Until we go through open enrollment, because, with this being a significant change, we don't know if more people are going to now enroll. So I think it's too soon to think we are not going to need an extra $1 million. I would think we won't need it all, but we need to wait till we go through open enrollment to see how it truly impacts the budget.
And so if open enrollment is in May and we are due to have this budget, we have to give the school their budget by, what, April 15th? No, May 15th? May 1st? What's the date?
May 15th.
15th, okay.
15.
So by the time we have to complete our budget, that's a pretty big moving egg, right? It's $1 million, like maybe we need it, maybe we don't. But we're not even gonna know, because you won't have completed open enrollment by the time we have the budget due. So what do we do about that?
Well, you can always reduce the budget, right? You can't
Well,
add.
at that point, you will be so close to adoption, a penny and a half impact on your tax rate is a pretty significant impact.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think, again, being that close to budget adoption and having the needle move that much is a pretty significant.
Yeah, I'm just asking for your opinion, and I really, it's incumbent on all of us to help decide how to address this, right? But $1 million, whether you put in the budget or you don't, because you need it or you don't, it's a pretty big decision to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a tough timeline. Now, you all know, 120% in favor of actually moving away from being self-insured because it's a huge liability for the citizens of the county. And I do feel like, purchasing a health plan affords us all more protection and better coverage and things like that. It's just something we have to discuss. It's a timeline we have to meet.
So if this is up for the school board next month, and let's just assume that this, next week, right?
Well,
So,
you're right, next month and next week.
both, right? Is this an action item next week?
Yes, we have to make a decision,
Okay.
because
Well, we're
we
not
have
in.
to have
Let's
open
just
enrollment.
assume that we.
She's not gonna know how many people take her up on
Well,
the
yeah,
insurance.
Right,
because,
and-
enrollment doesn't start till May 1st.
The other piece of that is right now we do have 4 plans, and with those 4 plans, we also have 4 levels of coverage, whereas if we were to move to the TLC, then we would only have 3 levels of coverage, and there will be other options for how they can get leveled coverage in terms of their dependents. And so there are many variables, not only just if more people enroll, but for example, right now you can, they can make the choice of coverage of employee plus child or employee plus spouse. Moving to the TLC, it will be employee plus 1. And so a person who has an employee plus child can choose to do the employee plus 1, whereas before they had to do the child children, which was more expensive, or less expensive. And so we're expecting them to potentially move not only the plan type that they have, but also the level of coverage that they have. And we expect others to possibly enroll as well. So there are those variables.
Well, can't you even, put out something that asks the question before you get to open enrollment? How many people, survey? Wouldn't that give you some idea where you might be?
So the difficult part about the timeline as well is that we have a very limited amount of time to educate all 830 of our employees on what is newly being offered to them, and then also having to give, because not only, while it is still Anthem is going to be the carrier no matter which we choose, the coverage and the, not only do the deductibles and the premiums change, but also do some of the plan features in terms of when co-insurance kicks in, what their HSA is going to be. So there is a lot of really important decisions for our employees to make in a very short period of time. So asking them to guesstimate what they might choose without having benefits counselors explain that to them would be very difficult and probably would not pan out the same way that they originally said.
So it sounds like bottom line is we don't have enough time to know prior to the end of this cycle. That's the bottom.
That's why I just think it's a little premature. Now, something else I'll tell you, because I was working on, the pricing of this, but historically, if an employee and the spouse both worked here, it was better for them to each take the employee-only coverage instead of taking an employee plus 1. And I'm thinking we need to reverse that, because now we are paying fixed premiums. Before we were paying based on claims. So if it's less expensive for the employee to go to employee plus 1, then I'm only paying 1 premium versus paying 2 for the single. And so those are things that we know are going to change. How many? I'm not really sure. And we're also waiting too to find out what is the state going to do. I would like to think the state's going to give us some more money. Is that going to be decided by May 15th?
I doubt that.
And this is not an anomaly. Each year, we do not know what the state is going to do. So I think to your conundrum that you presented, Ms. Roundtree, often the supervisors have to make a decision not knowing exactly what we're getting from the state. Our hope is that we get more, but we certainly don't know that, and we certainly can't bank on that. So it definitely does present a challenge to the supervisors to have to approve a budget without knowing exactly what we're going to be getting from some of our other funding sources.
The whole process is backwards. I've said it before, I'll say it again.
Definitely.
So just to continue, I did have 2 other questions regarding the pay study. One was, we talked about if the teachers go to a 70th percentile equivalent, we talked about that it's double digits, but what is that digit? What is the percentage increase for teachers at 70th percentile?
It's a range depending on where they fall on the steps, because in looking at the step scale, not everyone is going to change the same percentage because each step was compared to the market value of that step in other districts. For example, we were doing much better in the last, 25 to 35 years than we were doing in the first 25. And so those teachers at the end of their, on the end of the pay scale are not going to move up as much as those that were in the beginning and the middle. So the percentages are varied based on where they fall on the scale.
So just for the beginning,
It
just
should
for
average-
argument's sake,
It should average 12.75%.
average 12.7. And then what percentile is recommended for the other staff categories? So you said teachers, the consultant recommended 70th percentile. What percentile did the consultant recommend other categories?
65.
65.
And again, that's due to the concentration of our area and to the teacher shortage nationally,
That they recommended
the 70.
a higher percentile, right?
Anyone else got questions?
I guess before we leave this category, another question about the self-insured, I had at least one more. Another question about the self-insured tail, Mr. Berry.
Yes.
Have we saved enough? Is there enough to pay off
Oh.
the recommended tail?
Great question. So being self-insured, and if we go to this new plan, then we need to ensure that, because the new plan would start July 1st, so we need to ensure that we have enough money in reserves to pay what they call run-out claims, which are going to be claims that have incurred but haven't been processed through the system. And currently, we have about $2.5 million in reserves, and we probably need 3 to 3.5. And I believe that the savings that we are receiving or have in this fiscal year budget will be able to cover that.
When will you know what your savings was from FY '25?
Well, they're always coming and going.
No, I guess my point was more directed towards the audit results.
For 25?
For
No,
the
I'm
last
talking-
completed year that ended
Oh.
June 30th of 26, or 25, I mean.
And we're still hopefully going to get there soon. We provided some information to the auditors as recently as a couple of days ago. We think they've got all the information that they need, but they're just asking questions now or asking for us to, I guess, clear up some things for them. So we're hopeful that in the next couple of weeks, they're telling us we're finished. But
So for an audit that typically returns in December and it's March 26th, they're not just like completing the budget book now, they actually haven't given us the numbers of the,
not final numbers. And part of the challenge was that, again, well, not to rehash all the challenges in terms of staff turnover and those things, but we kind of got caught up in a situation where once it slipped, they had commitments to other communities. And so they're kind of fitting us in where they can, and that slowed the process to a crawl. We're still moving in the right direction, but slowly.
So you're thinking maybe 2 weeks, maybe?
I'm hopeful that it'll be in the next couple of weeks. We've been hoping that for a couple of weeks because they've had all the information for quite some time.
What's that mean? Because I know that when the schools was in that position 2 years ago, it was a big to-do. What's that mean at the county level? I'm curious. How does that affect everybody?
It doesn't necessarily. We're just at a point where the actual audit's just delayed. It doesn't affect the budget that we're currently in. It's just a matter of making sure that we have finite or concrete numbers in terms of what was left on what may have been unspent funds as of June 30, 2025.
But everything else carries on as normal.
we don't shut down.
So for
Because we don't have
example,
a complete audit.
if someone had let's say a capital project, and they had not closed that project out on June 30 because the project was still ongoing, this doesn't necessarily impact them. The funds were still there. But
So I've been involved in 2 budgets so far. This will be my 3rd, I guess. I don't know, Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Acree, how many you guys have under your belt? Many more than that, but, typically, money that's left on June 30th gets added to the next year's budget for capital and other expenditures. So it would be pretty important that those numbers come back so that we knew what to budget.
well, it goes to unassigned fund balance, and you all have the prerogative to appropriate that funding. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you for that section. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions? Good.
I do have a question, not a question, I'm just gonna ask on Dr. Kramer or Mrs. Sullivan to help. This is also my 3rd budget cycle, and I think every year I've gotten more and more smart, there's still much to learn. But I've heard over and over again about the unfilled positions and how there's so much excess revenue. I know Mr. Colick and I had some pretty big heartburn, and we're confused on that, and Mr. DeVere sat down with us and kind of opened the books, so to speak. Could you enlighten the group on how many unfilled positions we had or have this year approximately, and where'd that revenue go?
Sure. So I can share a little bit about that. So in our discussion, we really were talking about over the last 2 years, what positions have we had that hadn't been filled over the last 2 years. And I think it's important to note that a vacancy does not equate to a full savings for what was budgeted for that position and for those benefits. And neither does the idea of attrition. So the idea that you might have someone who's been working for 30 years, they retire and you hire a new teacher. When you look at the pay scale, there's going to be there's a difference in those things, but there's also variables, especially with health insurance, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, that affects those things. So first of all, in talking about the difference between hiring a 30-year veteran or having a 30-year veteran versus a newer teacher, there's going to be a change in their pay, but there's also oftentimes higher health insurance costs with those employees. Typically, when you're talking about a 30-year veteran, they have less dependents particularly that they might be covering, whereas if you have a family, a younger teacher, there might be a larger cost to that health insurance. And so that's part of that. So there is some savings there for sure, but not a full-time budgeted or everything that was budgeted maybe for that person. And then in terms of vacancies, one of the things about in education is that even when there's not a person that has picked up that job, the students are still coming. There's still going to be 22 to 26 little faces that show up in that classroom on the first day of school. And so we don't really have the option of not having a person in that position. So while there may be a vacancy, there's going to be someone that has to be paid in that position. Often it's a substitute. We contract out our substitute services. So if we have vacancies, sometimes we will move money over from payroll into that substitute account to help pay for that. We also have many positions where we hire long-term subs with us, and so they are typically bachelor's holding degree teachers that are not yet licensed or are not eligible for licensure. And so for those teachers or those individuals, we hire them as long-term subs, but they are the teacher of record in the classroom, and we work to support them through various pathways that we've developed to get them licensed. And so they are filling those spots. They don't cost the same as a teacher. We pay them at a lower hourly rate because they are a sub and they're not licensed. But there's still a significant cost, and that eats up what someone might assume is a savings. And so over the last 2 years, we have 4 positions that have gone unfilled for 2 years that did not have a substitute, or either through ESS or through us, or that wasn't picked up through additional blocks from a teacher. So at our secondary level, if we can't find a substitute, or sometimes even it's a better option because we'd rather have a licensed teacher teaching our children than having a substitute who's unlicensed. And so we will pay teachers additional funds during their planning block at their hourly rate to teach another section, and then we're essentially paying them to plan outside of school. And so, again, we only have 4 positions that we have not used those 3 options to fill over the last 2 years. And so what you'll see in our new position sheet, you'll see that -3, where we feel very comfortable because it's been a 2-year trend on the enrollment in the various schools, that we feel like we can cut 3 of those positions. One of them, we do feel like it's, in our best interest and the school division's best interest because of kindergarten enrollment. We never really know where that's going to be. It's hard to project that. And so we would want to keep one of those for that variance. And that's a very tight staffing budget to only have 1 extra that's built in there, especially when you have no idea what enrollment you might get from kindergarten year to kindergarten year.
You will have exit interviews when teachers leave.
We do, yes.
And what's the main reason the teachers leave?
A lot of that is pay. We do have teachers who are moving because they're moving to other areas, like they're relocating. But pay and benefits are 2 of the things that they say that the compensation package.
It's kind of ironic, because I spoke with a teacher. She was teaching in Suffolk, but now she want to come to Wight County. So I'm saying, well, is pay a major concern for some people? I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think that our school division has a lot to offer. I think that our schools are wonderful. We have great leaderships. They come here and have wonderful colleagues. There is great opportunities for professional development, and we have very clear pathways for promotion for people if they want to come in and be a teacher and then grow into an instructional coach to become an AP. So there is a lot of upward movement in that, and all of those things are very important. But I think we can no longer deny that in today's financial climate in our nation, that people don't have to, people are now having to make choices about finances. And perhaps that person is in a situation where they're in a 2-family earning household. Perhaps they are not the person who is carrying that load in their family, and potentially have more options and an opportunity to make that choice. Because we do have a lot to offer here, but that is not the choice that every person has, and we want to make sure that we are really not making our teachers make that choice, that they are able to earn a livable wage in the community in which they want to teach, and for a lot of them, it's the community in which they live.
If I may add, Mr. Jefferson, to your point, i-sle is a very desirable place, no question. People want to live here, they'd like to reside here. Lots of educators would like to work here. But I've shared with Mr. Marsh, there's a number. And there's a point when that number continues to grow, whether it's 5,000, 7,500, and some people on the scale, they can go to another county and make over $10,000 more, depending on where they are. And for the first time, I've seen that get to a point where people are deciding the salary differential is significant enough where more and more educators are leaving. Mrs. Sullivan cited a statistic, I think last summer, with 10 people, and it happened to be a perfectly round number, 10 people who wanted to come work here. When they were informed of how much they would be making, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 8 of the 10 decided, we want to come here, but we can't. We can make enough money elsewhere, and we're going to go next door. I'll tell you, I don't think I saw that my first year, maybe even year 2. But we're seeing more and more of that, where people are deciding, we'd like to work here, but we can't afford the cut in pay. Or if you're a new teacher, making $7,500 more to work in Suffolk or some of the other districts, people are now making decisions based upon pay. We've lost enough ground, and pay differential is significant enough where people are deciding to go elsewhere, despite their desire to want to work here.
And I think that's also true in comparing to, in my first year, when I came on board in the HR role here, we had, and I'm not to name another district, but we had another district that's in our close vicinity, and we pay more than them. And in that year, we hired 20 teachers from them. That well has run dry. So we are no longer able to keep pulling from the divisions that pay less than us. And they did not want to leave. Many of them were from that neighboring division and didn't want to leave, but they had to make the decision about driving an extra 30 to 45 minutes. And we're pleased with what Isle of Wight had to offer. And so I think that one of my biggest concerns is that we are someone else as well, that they are pulling from us because they can offer that significant pay increase, and we don't want to run dry. We have got to figure out how to fill our own bucket in order to keep our teachers here.
I like to talk, sorry, if y'all aren't used to it by now, I'm sorry. So we've had lots of discussions about student population, right? And over the past, I don't know how many years, around and about COVID, the student population, the overall average daily membership was slowly declining, but every year the schools asked for more money. I think this year, last time Dr. Kramer mentioned it, we're actually projected to have an additional 100 students on top of what was projected. So student population does seem to be trending up this year. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't pull on Ms. Magner sitting here. If she could speak a little bit to why we need more teachers, specifically SPED teachers. And
You want to come on here?
Okay. I can take a break.
You got it. So if you could tell us about how the student population for SPED has increased, and a little bit about student-teacher ratios and why you have such a demand. Bottom line, why are we asking for SPED teachers?
Well, we're asking for SPED teachers because our numbers do continue to increase. We, as an example, since the 2021 school year, the special education population has increased by 15%. So while the numbers potentially do fluctuate in different, general population numbers, we continue to increase. When I looked at fall membership, which is another indicator similar to ADM, but it's more comparable to the reporting time frame as my December 1 counts, for example, we have continued to increase in terms of our population with regard to the number of students with disabilities versus those non-disabled, from 14% in the 2021 school year to 16% in the 25-26 school year. So although our gen population numbers are fluctuating, or the total numbers are fluctuating, I should say, our SPED numbers continue to increase.
What's the total SPED student population?
It's about 890 as of December 1.
Out of how many total students?
Looks like
52, roundabout?
54, 74 was the fall membership count for this school year.
It's a big number.
Behavior differences. So one of the things I talked about when I was talking at one of the school board meetings was we had the 15% increase from the 2021 school year that I referenced is approximately 117 students. And of those 117 students, a third of them are students that require significant services. So there are students who would be considered, like 50% or more of their day is considered to be requiring special education services. So that number alone, that's where we find the most difficulty in terms of having enough staff to support those kiddos. So our request, there's one request that we have, for example, to have an additional 5 IAs in our self-contained classrooms. Those 5 IAs are there to support the students because of behavioral difficulties, also because of medical needs that we have to provide for our students, daily living needs that we assist our students with. Those additional 5 IAs are also there to support our teachers. We want to retain the teachers that we do have, and so adding the additional IA support is there to assist them as well, because they need the support for the kiddos. They need the support so they can have a planning break, for example. Our teachers in our self-contained classrooms don't get a planning break. They work through their lunches and through their plannings because we don't have enough staff to help the kiddos out. So our numbers do increase on the SPED side, and that's why my requests are still there for teachers. I gave you the one example of the IAs that we're asking for, but another example, we do have a request for an additional self-contained classroom. Westside currently is over, or they're at capacity. We have ratios that are very small in certain situations. Some of our self-contained classrooms, we have to cap at 8 students. Most of our self-contained classrooms, in fact, we cap at 8 students. So an influx at any point during or before the school year can put us straight over that compliance. And that's what happened at Westside. We projected to be at about 6 students this fall, but we had 3 students move in that we didn't know of, right? They transferred in. So that put us at 9, and we right away became out of compliance. So we're having to move kiddos to different buildings so that we can stay within the regulations. And so the additional class at Westside, for example, is because when I looked into the fall roll-up, we're going to start at 8 again. And 8 is at capacity, so we have to have that second classroom, which is the teacher and the IA, to be able to have that overflow.
SPED IAs are a good source of substitute teachers too, right?
SPED, we try not to use them as substitutes because that would be pulling them from kiddos, but they are a good source actually for upcoming teachers. We work with a lot of our SPED IAs to put them into programs that actually move them into teaching positions so that we can kind of grow our own, and we have those, and we train our own as we do that. So we do use our SPED IAs to ultimately become our teachers when we can.
And thank you for that segue, because I think one of the items, 375,000 in our, oh, sorry. Thank you for the segue, because 375 of the increase in our purchase service line that Dr. Kramer referenced is for an increase to sub-pay, because what we don't want to do is pull our SPED IAs from their hired positions to sub in our classrooms. We want them to be doing the work, and they need to be doing the work that they were hired to do because they're there for a reason. And again, back to the concept of like the faces are still showing up every day when a teacher is sick and we can't get a sub. We have to have a person who we trust to supervise those students because we can't send them home. And so with our current substitute rates, we are vastly below our neighboring divisions in the same regard. And so we've asked for 375 just to increase that. We know that in Hampton, they use the same contracted substitute company as we do, and they have so many substitutes in Hampton that they have days where substitutes can't find a job. And so we want to pay enough so that the substitute is willing, because we do have many who come to us from Hampton, especially on this end of the county, are willing to drive across the bridge and to work in our schools. And we know that they will because we have great schools, great kids, and supportive families. And so we need to entice them to come and sub as well so that we don't have to use our IAs for that purposes.
So, I wish Ms. Getz was here. So on February the 20th, I went to go pick up my youngest at the elementary school, and I always see Dr. Wilkins, principal, up there, and she was wore out, and she was telling me about how many teachers had called out sick that day, and I reached out to Mrs. Getz on that one day, and I guess the bug was going around.
Yeah.
They had 57. They needed 57 substitutes across the division on one day, but we could only fill 33.
Mm-hmm.
So. I'm not doing that quick math in my head, I'm too tired, but that's a lot of people that we're covering down. That's a lot of sitting teachers that were using their block to fill in as subs. So.
And you get paid for that.
And I know that one of the other asks that we have as a special ed department is for additional 10 teachers in the inclusion setting. That's separate from the self-contained setting. The reason for that is we've traditionally been staffed to meet compliance. And while that's great because we have to meet compliance, we really don't have enough support in the inclusion setting as well for both the teachers and the students. So we are asking for teachers in that setting as well. Again, so that we can support the kiddos that are there who are requiring special ed services. A lot of that has to do with behavior. When we are dealing with, potentially one student who is having a very difficult day, that's pulling that teacher out of that classroom, and it's taking up a lot of their time, and it's leaving the other kids potentially without those services for that moment. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are staffed beyond compliance so that we can actually do more for our kiddos, and then also support the gen ed teachers who are essentially working with us in the school setting, in the classroom settings. But again, it's really to help retain the teachers that we have and also support the kiddos that need the help. That's becoming more and more.
Seems like we've moved into the new position point on the agenda, so just to continue with that, on the budget book, there's asterisks by positions required, so I kind of, while you have the floor, wanted to hear about the SPED SC teacher and the SCIA that are required and why that's different from the other requests.
So the requirements are based on compliance and based on numbers and the caps that we have on our classrooms. And so that self-contained or SC teacher and the self-contained IA are both for that West Side class that we know we're going to need in the fall based on numbers. Again, when I looked at the roll-up for this coming school year, that class is scheduled to have 8 students, which is at max capacity. So that doesn't allow for any transfers in. And should we have transfers in, we're going to have to be doing what we did this year, which is moving those kiddos to different locations so that we can provide their services.
There's also a speech.
There is. It's a part-time speech pathologist. Again, that's a compliance piece. Our caseloads have gotten so high on this end of the county that, and where traditionally or historically we've been able to pull the speech pathologist from Carrollton or from Hardy to provide the services at Smithfield Middle or Smithfield High, we are unable to do that anymore. And so that part-time speech pathologist that we're asking is to cover the services at Smithfield Middle and Smithfield High so that we can remain in compliance with our caseload numbers.
And there's 2, I think, that are on here, and it says transfer from grant, but I'm a bit unclear as to if they're new or just new to the general fund.
Those would be new to the general fund because currently they are paid through our 611 grant, which is the annual plan that actually is going to the board next month for approval. But because we do pay for several SPED staff out of our grant funds, with the increase of salaries and benefits that we've been seeing over the years, the grant has not been increasing as much, and so therefore we can't cover as many salaries and benefits as we have been able to. So we're having to move 2 positions off of the grant to local funds so that we can free up money for materials and supplies and still be within our budget there.
So does that affect the dollars you're able to get from the grant, or they just don't care as long as it meets the intent and it can go to supplies if you move the
It would go to supplies.
salary away and put it in the general fund? In other words, if you're not paying the teachers out of that grant, do those dollars go away, or they allow you to apply it to other things?
No, the dollars would go to materials and supplies.
And there's a request of 17 cafeteria and resource monitors. That's a big number. That's not you, I'm guessing, that's Ms. Sullivan.
Yeah, and those are not full-time positions, so would you speak to that, please?
Sure, yes. So cafeteria recess monitors are part-time positions, part-time employees that come in for 4 hours a day. So there is no benefits that are included in their compensation. But they come in 4 hours a day in order to provide our elementary school teachers with duty-free lunch and duty-free recess. This year we did implement a few of those, but it wasn't enough in order to give all of the teachers every day lunch and recess free. And this even would not get all of them, but in terms of like everyday lunch and recess, but it would at least give all of our teachers at the elementary level that duty-free lunch. And that's something that happens in a lot of other school divisions. Elementary school teachers, as you may already know, have very limited planning blocks in comparison to their secondary counterparts. And so that lunch allows them to use the restroom, make a couple of copies, and maybe even eat their lunch without having to open up, 25 milk cartons and ketchup packets and, fruit snacks. So we're trying to, it's a cost, but it is minimally as we can make it in order to provide that service because again, we don't want to be pulling our IAs who are trained to provide instructional services to do those specific duties.
So I'm a little perplexed by the asterisk that says positions required, but the duty-free lunch staff are listed as required, but I was under the understanding that the asterisk meant that the state, I'm looking at the budget book, it has a little asterisk, is that not what that means?
Are you speaking to the chart that's up, the asterisk for the positions that are?
I don't know if it matches or not. I'm looking at the one with the blue bar on top.
Cafeteria and recess monitors are not required.
Oh, that's below the line. So it's vacant teacher positions. are
Yes, we were
required.
saying like that's a required, we want to accept that savings, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I had about that. Thank you.
Oh,
Anybody else? Does anybody else have any questions? Ms. Magner, Ms. Sullivan, is there anything else that we need to know?
not if you don't have any other questions. Dr. Kramer, would you like us to add anything else?
No, I think we provided a comprehensive update on the needs for our special education positions primarily.
Yeah, I'd like to say, I went and I looked at the special education classes, and I've got a son with profound needs, and he goes to a private school, basically because he needs one-on-one instruction. So when I went in, I noticed that we have one teacher and one IA in a classroom of 6 to 8 kids, with the IA handling a child. And if the teacher had to take another child out, there's nobody else there. So it's been my experience with special needs at that level, they've got to have 3 people in a classroom. And that's the reason that, came out right away supporting, what Ms. Magner's asking for. She's not asking for the world. We're asking just to give these kids the opportunity to learn what they can. Okay, they're not, some of them aren't gonna come out spelling their names. They're not gonna be able to write. But they may learn, a little bit of discipline. They may learn how to button up their shirt and things like that. And so that's why we need 3 people in those classrooms. So please consider that when you're looking at the budget for that. I can't say enough about it and how passionate I am about the need for, more help in our sped
And
classes.
Chair Collick, if I may, before moving on, thank you for mentioning that you were invited, along with our board members, to visit some of our special education programs. We extend that same offer to members of the Board of Supervisors. Mrs. Magner and her staff will gladly take you around so that you can see it. Knowing it is one thing, but getting a chance to see it, I think is very compelling. So again, we extend that opportunity and offer to both boards.
And one thing I didn't mention, and I do want to add, we want to be able to serve our kids. We want to be able to keep them in our schools. However, often we have to make the tough decision to move kids to more restrictive placements because I don't have enough staff to work with them in the classrooms that we have. When we make that decision to move them to more restrictive placements, it costs the division a lot of money. And while we do it because we need to, I would prefer to be able to work with our kids. Our facilities are just as good as these placements that I have to find for them. Our teachers are just as good, if not better. The difference is the number of staff and the low ratios that those programs have to offer. So really our hope is by adding that additional staff, we can keep our kids.
I do think it's worth mentioning the cost of a placement.
The cost of the placements when we have to make those decisions average about $50,000 to $60,000 a piece.
Per student, correct?
How many students do we place other places?
Currently, it's about 14 to 17.
And correct, it's per student.
Per student, yes.
Could that be a revenue generating idea? If we staffed way up, could we take other people's placements?
Potentially.
Get the wheels turning over there.
Yeah, I know. Making a note.
I don't know if it'll cover the cost of your staff.
Are there other costs?
60,000's a lot.
Yeah.
Are there other costs associated with
we've
placing
actually talked a little
students
bit about
that may
Yeah,
not
studying.
be incurred on I guess every day or in the budget one and
It affects transportation because a lot of these placements are not near us. So we're having to send kids to Norfolk, Virginia Beach. Again, because they have more teachers.
and we have to pay for that cost. So so not only are we paying for the placement
Yes.
to attend that school, but then we have to pay for the gas, the bus driver, the aide to transport that one or two or three students, because those students are also at various placements. So it's not like all of them are going to the same location. So you're talking about 3 or 4
Correct.
extra bus routes on a daily basis to further locations just for those placements.
I will just say, I appreciate everything y'all do with SPED. Growing up here in the county, going through the school system, you learn a lot, not just going through the school system, but as a parent. There's another part of this if we don't meet the mark on SPED. It's amazing to me over the years, not so much people in this room, my experience in this county is SPED's always the last thing that seems to be added to a budget. Shame on this county if that's the way we do things, which I don't think that's the way we do it anymore. There's another part of this, and I've been part of this, unfortunately, and that's the legal cost that we missed the mark.
Correct.
It's amazing how much localities, not necessarily ours, spend in legal cost because we don't meet the mark. And I might know somebody up pretty close and personal that's had to spend legal money of themselves fighting in the very county that I'm paying taxes to.
Yes.
So this is extremely important, and we've all got difficult decisions to make when it comes to budget, but I hope regardless, this remains a top priority. We are about helping those that need the help. The other thing is, and somebody talked about finger pointing, and this isn't that at all, but I think as a region, the understanding that Hampton Roads, a lot of our military, for example, they get assigned or they get stationed here because of some of the resources here, CHKD, et cetera. So some of these young people with IEPs, they may be part of that group, and so they're here, and what better place to live than Alloy County? So I just hope that we all continue to put SPED as the priority of our school system. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Mr. Acre.
I guess, Dr. Coleman, you want to talk to us a little bit?
I sure would. But I believe that the questions going in the other operating needs, was there a topic of discussion going right into the other operating needs, or it was just the future capital needs? Is it the focus?
I can speak to a few of the other operating needs. Because this will, on Dr. Kramer's slide, it showed some different categories, like one was purchase services, where we are showing an increase. And right there, so the very first one there, security. We have contracted out security to run the weapons detection systems at the 2 new middle schools. We feel it's best to contract that service out primarily because if you have an employee that is supposed to be working the security every day of school, and for some reason they can't come to work, you can't call someone and say, hey, can you come fill in? But when we contract it out, they have to provide us with a substitute that same day. So that's why we have chosen to go with the contracted security.
So what does that actually cover? I mean, $422,000.
It covers six additional,
Yes.
Six,
What?
6 additional security officers. They are unarmed.
These are the folks that are running the metal detector, weapons detection devices. I want to get my verbiage right. That's a big part of their duties.
That is correct. That's one portion of the duties. Other duties are assigned while working throughout the building, assisting, checking doors, checking outside exteriors. It's various responsibilities and duties depending upon the actual campus itself.
So these will be the SSOs or just somebody in addition?
It's in addition. We have 3 SSOs that are under our employ.
So who actually man the detection systems in the morning? I'm gonna say at Smithfield High School.
The SSOs.
Huh?
SSOs man the staff works with it, but the SSOs actually man it. It wasn't the case before, but that's the case at this time.
But I think it's important to note, we only had 3 SSOs, thank you. We only had 3 SSOs in the entire division. And to Mr. Marsh's point, we didn't have any in our middle schools. So the additional security, or not only at our middle schools, but they're also now in assisting and augmenting the work in our high schools. So before, we didn't have enough SSOs to man, if you will, the weapons detection systems at the high school, and we had none at the middle school. So these additional security are handling those responsibilities at both middle and high, as well as providing other supports that we didn't have prior to.
And I asked that question because I noticed I was at Smithfield High School last Thursday, I think it was. And I saw the kids come in, and they come in with their computers or laptops, put them above, where you can have anything inserted in the laptop, but you put it above where it's going to detect anything. So, to me, you're kind of defeating the purpose, so to speak.
Well, based off, and I know exactly what you're saying, Mr. Jefferson, but based off of the overall checks, what schools divisions have done all around the region, all around the country, is that is the way of entry. They hold just the laptop above. And being that if every single student walked through the weapons detection device at the time, the laptop will set it off. Now, the laptop is not in a book bag. I want to make sure that the community understands, because I know that you've seen it with your own eyes. But the laptop is not in a case or anything else. It is simply the laptop. And let's just be 100% honest. No matter if we had weapons detection, someone full body searching and anything else, any individual can be as creative as possible. With that said, the mass majority is really controlled by those weapon detection. Device up top, the 3-ring binders, this was another issue, and what we found that was an issue, and then we worked around that to make sure that we capture that. But at this present time, we're not seeing an issue with holding those laptops over top.
It's certainly not a cure-all, and I think we've
Yes, it's
said
not a
that it's
cure-all.
another layer of protection. So there's, I don't think, any one thing that's going to guarantee complete safety, but I think it has certainly contributed to providing a more safe environment.
I was over at
And
the
once again, my point is, if I was coming to school tomorrow morning, I could put a knife in between my laptop. When I walk into the school system, it's up above the detection. Now, I pass through, and we're supposed to be in a safe environment, but we got a weapon in the school.
Again,
And nobody checked the laptop when the kids walk through.
I'm not an expert in security, but I think we can say that our devices have added to our security. In terms of that, I mean, that's, I think, best practice. It would set off. I was at a game a few months ago, and I just had a bunch of car keys in my pocket. I set it off. So I can't say it's foolproof. It's not. But I think it is contributing to us being able to detect some weapons. Hate to acknowledge this and say this, but to be totally transparent, the system did work, and we actually found a weapon in one of our schools. So I hear your point. I'm not suggesting that you're incorrect, but we also have to weigh that with how do we expedite getting students in, because when we first rolled this out, we had some cases where students were taking an extensive period to get into the school. So we have to have a system that allows us to get students in a timely fashion and provide a sense of security as well. So we're balancing that.
I think deterrence is a big part of it, Mr. Jefferson. I was at the middle school a few weeks back, and I was watching them do the same thing. And it's funny, you watch some of the short, like my kids, short, going through the middle school. But what the principal told me was that some of these knuckleheads get creative, to your point, and they were carrying the vapes in through 3-ring binders. So now they get a table set up there.
Right.
And any kid that comes through with a 3-ring binder, guess what? They're throwing it on a table. So it's all deterrence, I think, is a big part of it. Certainly not a catch-all.
Yes, it is.
And you're not wrong that we
Right.
have to continue to look at ways. Students are going to be creative. People are creative. So how do we continue to look at ways to provide our students with a safe and secure environment? And again, having the additional security. we can use them in different ways. So I am not suggesting that you're wrong at all, sir. We have to be creative. We have to invest in ways to ensure that we're providing a safe environment for our students and staff.
So the third-party company that you're gonna use for your SSOs, will the 3 SSOs that you have now go work for that company or be replaced by a company, so they'll remain county employees?
Yes. Oh, go right here.
So, who supervises the 3 now? Don't you have a supervisor over the 3 now?
It's gonna be, Mr. Jason Brinkley. He supervises those 3, and he's a supervisor of the contract, the, top, card contract that we use for SSOs.
Thank you.
Will we be able to use those SSOs after school events? You know?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the, based off the contract, we can be very flexible with those SSOs to use them when we need to use those, use them. At this time, it's a cost savings from some of the other avenues of choice that we have done in the past.
And to your question, Vice Chair Ford, we are using the detection systems now at athletic events. I'm not going to say every athletic event, but of our major events, basketball games, football games. In fact, it was a basketball game that I set it off in the evenings with all my car keys, and they had fun at that and had to go back around and take my keys out of my pocket and go back through. But we're using that at more events because they're portable. So that's providing, again, a level of security and safety for some of our major athletic events as well.
And just to piggyback on that also, just with the contracted SSOs, at one time we were short of SSO because one of them had moved on. With that stated, it was weeks to months before we can fill that position. With the contract SSOs, we can have one the next day, ready to go and moving forward. So that takes out the lag time in terms of safety and security.
It's a pretty good job. 422,000 divided by 6 is $70,333.33. So I understand that's probably not what the SSO is getting paid, but it's not too bad. I'm sure that includes benefits if they get any, but it's not a bad job.
If you guys recall, I think it was last year when Smithville High, they caught a weapon and one of our first-year teachers was on the receiving end of it. This is how this came to be.
So Don, what does it cost to get an SRO certified?
So an SRO, as I understand it, would come in, depending on whether or not we got a grant or was totally locally funded, pretty much at a similar rate to a deputy coming in, because when they're not in the schools, the sheriff is using them as he does any of his other deputies.
Well, could you
So,
get 4 SROs at this rate here, $422,000?
Not really, because the sheriff's gonna wanna have a vehicle with each one of his people.
True.
So the cost of each one of his people is roughly about $120 coming in.
And they have to go through the police academy, and you could easily go to the police academy and they move on to another locality, so there goes all that money that you spent educating.
Yeah, we have 11 open FTEs in the sheriff's department right now, so.
The other piece of that is with your SROs, they are primarily there to provide law enforcement services. And so one of the issues with putting an SRO at the weapons detection is that they are then conducting a search for which they do not have probable cause. Whereas we can provide those searches as a point of entry into our schools because that is a safety and security measure that we have. But if law enforcement would have come across a weapon, that could be a concern for them in terms of the legality of that search, if they were there performing the search themselves. So that's one of the reasons of having an SSO, provides that as a better option for both us and the sheriff's department. Because then if we find that, we hand it over to law enforcement, and then they can proceed as they would.
So I guess just to add a little bit to your question, Mr. Chairman, one of the challenges that we have in the upcoming budget is that we have about 4 SROs whose grant has run out.
Oh,
And so we have to pick up the local cost for those previously funded grant positions. Now that said, we've made application for a renewal of those grants, but there's no guarantee that we'll get that. So we have to budget for the local only cost of having 4 SROs that are currently in place.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be right.
When do we hear about the grant?
After July.
Also unfortunate timing.
Yeah, trust me, we've been agonizing.
I think some of those grants, they had run out at several of the schools.
Yes, sir.
We had them,
Yeah, that's
but they had
that's
put
what
in
we just-
for grants at
Yes, sir.
schools that didn't have them, which that's what they did. They went out and got those grants to replace the grants that they lost at different schools, because they couldn't do it at the same school.
And that's what the sheriff's office has done
Yeah.
in this situation as well.
All right. Ms. Coleman?
Yes, sir.
Get them on the right track.
I think the next item is, if you didn't have any more questions about that, I think it's future capital needs.
I just want to, if it's okay, Mr. Jefferson, just touch on the future capital needs. And just wanted to first of all start off by delineating between the operating budget and capital needs. I need to make sure that we're all on the same page and the community is on the same page in terms of capital needs. As soon as the school has facilities. Those facilities are provided through the Board of Supervisors, but those facilities are for the community. Just like the tracks and different things of that nature, the tracks, the fields, tennis courts, all of that. Those facilities are regulated by the school, but at the same time, it's open to the community. On the weekends, during the school days, different things of that nature, the school uses these. So a lot of times when the community hears that the school needs more money for capital, we need to just keep in mind those capital resources based in those facilities are for all community members. And just based off of the MOU that we signed earlier this year between the Board of Supervisors and the school board, there's been over $121,000 that we didn't charge as we normally, we being the schools, to the community, because the community is working through the Wight County Parks and Rec, the youth basketball, baseball, different things of that nature. So I just want to bring everything into perspective once we start talking about the capital improvement plans, the fleet service building, the school bus replacement, the weapons detection system, also the division-wide bathroom repairs, the replacement upgrade for HVAC at Carrollton, the one for Windsor High School, Carsville, thank you, and of course, New West Side School. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. Also, please keep in mind, when we're looking at the 70 million, understand that the school was projected out for 70 million. There was a future projection for the school, but at the same time, keep in mind that we were allocated the $14 million SCAP grant. So on top of that, that 14 million would always come directly off the top of that 70 million. So just something else to keep in mind in terms of tax dollars and how much money will be spent concerning the New West Side. All of those will play a factor into the final roll. So are there any questions on the future one-time expenses or anything of that nature? Hopefully I've just helped you try to delineate a little bit more from the public point of view of when the schools ask for capital improvements. Those capital improvements are for all of the facilities that the community uses on a regular basis anyway.
Do you have the matrix available? I think actually, I can't get onto the internet. It's fine. I don't want you to rush and try to fix it. I can't pull up the document, but
Okay.
I did have a copy of the matrix where the school board members 2 years ago ranked where you thought, and I understand you didn't do it again this year because you didn't add anything to it. But I wondered where the things on the capital budget that's been asked for, where they fell as far as the rankings, and I wanted to just re-review that, but I could do it another time, I guess.
We'll make certain to get you that information, and to your point, we didn't load that, but we certainly have that, and we can provide that to you, Mrs. Roundtree and other members of Board
I
of
mean, like
Supervisors.
specifically, I know I've heard about the New West Side, fleet service civilians, bus replacement, weapons detection, even division-wide bathroom repair, I think, I remember was in the top 5. That's
Yes,
what I try to
ma'am.
look up as the top 5.
And those items right there are the top 5 that you're
But
looking for.
then the 2 replacements, HVAC, the generator, I don't recall where those fell.
They're on the sheet that I have. I know that there's been a lot of revisions, so maybe that was a revision, and once again, they're on here. And those are some of the ongoing issues that we talked about earlier. So I have to find out exactly where this revision, but at the same time, those are the ones on the one-time expenses.
Dr. Coleman, if I'm not mistaken, those were put on there basically for information last year, as in heads up, this is going to be a need that we need. So I don't think it was that we needed it right then last year.
Right.
I think it was put in there for the 5-year, here's what's coming up, so
And thank you, Ms.
you weren't
Perkins.
blindsided.
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Perkins. It's, yes, because now we remember the conversation concerning Carsville, the Carsville HVAC. It is getting along. It is probably 32 years old. It's supposed to be changed out at age 25, but at the same time, it's still working. But I was requested by the board to add that to the asset control to ensure that we are planning for the replacement. And some of the other items are the same.
Is the weapons detection system, elementary, you've got that, is that high priority? Or is something down lower could be used? But I know you need detection systems. I know you need to be safe. And that goes in all elementary schools?
It's based for all elementary schools, but that will be a board decision when they rank. I think that's what Ms. Roundtree was getting to for that particular.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I don't think these are in order,
No.
because I think I remember that the replacement school was 1 or 2,
Yeah,
right?
I think that was moved up to at least 2.
And to your point, Ms. Roundtree, our board did not do a ranking this year for our CIP needs, so we can certainly look back to what the last report
The
was.
last revision.
The disaster recovery generator, what is that? Because
That is for this particular building here. Central office at 820, 820 West Main Street, they had a disaster recovery center there. So when the division starts to go down because of power or anything of that nature, the central office was always up and always ready to go and still talk to, communicate, and work through with other schools. So just as this last storm actually hit the county, hit West Side, if you're not mistaken, I called Will Drury, me and talked through the situation. Well, Hardy was out of power after the last storm, something had caught on fire in the woods or something of that nature. But either way, all the rest of the schools were up. So with that said, and central office connected to Hardy went down also. So we had 8 schools up and running, no central office up and running, and no school. So it's hard to distribute information going back and forth, and that is when we need to find that emergency recovery system. As you already know, tech has moved over, so now tech is in the building also. So get systems up and running, the different servers, the different things of that nature. That's why we need that generator. So in essence, it's a generator to keep the headquarters, AKA central office, running at all times.
And I'm sorry, I was just going to say, Mr. Coopright is our resident expert. Great response, Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to add, Mr. Coopright? You're going to need to come over.
I guess in addition to that, I get that it's for this building. Could have been quicker, but anyway. So when it comes to the generators that are in the schools, all schools have generator power?
No, all schools, well, I'll say it like this. Most schools have the half generator. It's only 2 schools that have a full generator.
So
And those 2 are the emergency management for the county.
So I'm hoping that our emergency manager is engaged, which you just mentioned him a little while ago. Because disaster recovery generators, whether it has to do with evacuation or shelters or this, I mean, there should be a plan for the entire county, whether it's school system, whether it's public works or whoever, or the towns for that matter. I think that that's a good opportunity for us to collaborate. I don't know if you need it or not. It's not my my job to tell you what you need.
Absolutely.
But I think the collaboration is much needed if we're not already doing that.
Right, and once again, we've had it for the last 25, 30 years, but now we do not have that. So that is something that's
Might be
been
an
working.
opportunity to change something.
Absolutely, and so is West Side, when we move into West Side.
I just have one thing to add.
Go right ahead.
If I could, I actually met with County IT today, discussing about how they would like to add some of their systems into our MDA. It's called a network closet in the back. And they were also, I told them we didn't have a generator currently. We have a very large battery backup system, but we in IT collaborate with county IT on a, if not daily basis, every other day, because we share so many services together. And so when they asked if they could add it in, I was like, sure. This is in the plan for the future. Hopefully we get it funded at some point.
I appreciate that, the collaboration, and over the years, I've heard that y'all work very closely with IT, the emergency management aspect. Sometimes there are grants and stuff available through emergency management that might actually be an opportunity.
With that said, sir, if there's no other questions,
Okay, thank you, John. Well, I guess we're going to go in closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it is the board's pleasure at this time pursuant to section 2.237. Oh, I can stand up. Can you too? I'll start again. Mr. Chairman, if it is the board's pleasure at this time pursuant to section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia, a motion to move to closed session for the limited purpose of a discussion regarding the acquisition of real property for school construction purposes, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the board pursuant to subsection 3.
So moved.
Madam,
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
yes. The board will reconvene.
Does the school board need to make that?
You want to do it?
Move to go into closed session to discuss the acquisition of land for purposes of school construction, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body as authorized by VA Code 2.2-3711A3.
Second?
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yes. Thank you.
Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
And Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Okay. We will reconvene after closed session. Session.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to, let me get that speaker. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, pursuant to section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, a motion certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as identified in the motion to move to closed session were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed session.
So moved.
Madam Clerk,
Mr. Ely,
Yes.
Mr. Garner,
Yes.
Mr. Akery.
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree.
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson.
yes.
All right, move that the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provision of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second?
Motion and second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
And Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Well, if there's no further business at hand, no other discussion,
Adjourn.
motion for adjournment.